Something stirs in the water long before we ever see its outline. A faint pulse of movement that feels more like a question than a creature. And this uncertainty becomes the first sign that jellyfish grow stranger with every meter of descent. Hook the listener with a shocking, mystery scientific topic. Scientists studying deep pelagic zones often describe a moment when familiar biology begins to unravel. When jellyfish stop behaving like the drifting bells we know and start becoming something else. Shapes that seem improvised by the pressure creatures that appear more apparition than animal, and pulses of light that seem to leap ahead of their bodies as if the darkness belongs to them. The descent begins gently enough with the sea fading from turquoise to cobalt, a deepening of color so gradual it feels like watching a sky darken before a storm. And yet the creatures around us shift faster than the water. Jellyfish in these upper layers still hold faint traces of sunlight in their bells, still drift with an innocence shaped by warmer water and plentiful plankton. But that innocence evaporates almost immediately as light becomes scarce. Their forms stretch, their movements slow, and their bodies begin to glow from within, as if awakening to rules written long before vertebrates appeared. This transition is not a simple matter of biology. It is the first hint of how depth rewrites life itself. The shadows grow thicker, settling like velvet around the limbs of animals whose shapes feel designed for a dream rather than an ecosystem. And jellyfish respond by loosening their edges, letting their bells ripple with softer motions that seem tuned to the drag of the dark. Scientists note how even shallow water species alter their behavior at dusk, descending toward zones where sunlight cannot follow. And it is here that the mystery sharpens. These animals do not simply adapt to darkness, they transform in ways that seem almost anticipatory. A ghostly elegance replaces the casual drifting we see near the surface. A stillness that feels less like rest and more like concentration, as though each jelly has slipped into a language spoken only at night. With every meter downward, the water becomes less a habitat and more a world governed by thresholds. The last colors drain away, leaving blues that deepen into ink and then into nothing, while the jellyfish begin revealing features they hide under the daylit surface. Faint halos appear around their bells rings of bioluminescent tissue, so subtle they look like memory rather than matter. Researchers believe these halos serve as gentle camouflage, blending their outlines into the dark so that predators cannot track their motion. Yet there is an element of beauty too perfect to be explained by necessity alone. A delicate shimmering that feels designed to soothe, not hunt, as though jellyfish glow not for advantage, but because the deep sea asks it of them. The deeper we sink, the more the water thickens, not literally, but perceptually, as though the medium itself gains weight, pressing sound light and motion into slower rhythms. And jellyfish answer this rhythm beautifully. Their bodies transition from recognizable domes into stretched, reconfigurable canvases that pulse like living umbrellas. Their tentacles trail behind them in slow motion, folding and unfurling, as if every action is performed inside a dream. One scientific hypothesis suggests that slowing down saves energy in a world where food becomes scarce. But another proposes something more subtle, that slowness itself becomes a form of invisibility. A disappearing act, performed through the manipulation of time rather than color. Even the shadows here behave differently. They don't fall away. They gather wrapping around bodies in ways that obscure motion and confuse the eye, making it nearly impossible to tell where one creature ends and the darkness begins. In these shadows, jellyfish adopt a kind of patience that feels ancient, drifting in spirals or hovering in stillness as if practicing the deep sea equivalent of meditation. This is where the scientific evidence grows eerie. Many deep-living jellyfish show activity cycles that do not match surface time, suggesting internal clocks, tuned to something older than day or night, something shaped by planetary tides or the gravitational pulse of the moon itself. As our descent reaches the edge of the twilight zone, the transformation becomes undeniable. The jellyfish before us seem carved from softer matter than biology allows, their bells appearing porous, almost like fabric soaked in light rather than tissue. Their drifting silhouettes dissolve into dim mosaics that shift and reform with each pulse, as if sculpted by memory rather than structure. Scientists studying these forms speak often of how difficult it is to categorize them, because the deeper one goes, the more jellyfish defy the boundaries that define species. They become not merely animals, but expressions of an environment so extreme that life itself is forced into artistic improvisation. But it is the darkness itself that sharpens their strangeness. This is a place where sight dies, but presence remains sharp, where animals must build strategies in a world without silhouettes, without color, without horizon. And jellyfish flourish here. Their drifting forms take advantage of the near-zero gravity of slow currents, their bodies tuned to the subtlest shifts of water. They stretch and compress their bells in movements so cautious, they seem choreographed, preserving every droplet of energy for survival. A mystery emerges. How does something so delicate persist in a realm where even pressure itself seems designed to erase softness? Pressure builds long before we can feel it rising, not like a sudden force, but like the slow tightening of an invisible hand around the entire world of water, and jellyfish, far from resisting it, reshape themselves as though pressure were a sculptor coaxing new forms from old blueprints. Their bodies, already simple in the way a circle is simple and yet infinite, begin to shift into stranger architectures as the weight of the water increases, and this is where the journey becomes unsettling. And the deeper we travel, the more jellyfish abandon the familiar for shapes that look improvised, provisional, or deliberately uncanny. The upper ocean creatures we know, neat bells with tidy rows of tentacles, start elongating, thinning, flattening, or folding in response to pressures that would crush most life into stillness. A drifting elegance replaces buoyant motion, and even their pulses grow slow enough to mimic the rhythm of a sleeping planet. Scientists often describe pressure as the most ruthless designer in the deep sea because it does not negotiate. It demands. Every 10 meters down, another atmosphere of weight presses inward on every surface, shaping bodies from the outside in. Jellyfish, with their extraordinary softness, respond with transformations that seem almost supernatural. Their bells collapse into wide, thin discs that flutter like living parachutes or stretch into long, trailing veils that ripple with each passing current. Some species develop complex folds, almost like pleated fabric, allowing them to compress under sudden surges of force without tearing. This is the first scientific evidence that deep sea forms are not weird by chance. They are exquisitely engineered by the environment itself. As we descend deeper into the mesopelagic realm, pressure becomes an artist with sharper instincts, coaxing jellyfish into body plans that would look absurd in shallower water. We encounter species whose bells are barely present at all, thin, almost membranous sheets that capture and release water with impossible gentleness. Others develop intricate frameworks of gelatinous spokes or ribs that bend instead of break, structures so delicate they can fold flat and then expand again, like umbrellas made of living tissue. These designs hint at a truth both strange and elegant. Jellyfish do not resist pressure. They collaborate with it, becoming softer, more transparent, and more fluid as the deep sea reshapes them. Even their internal structures begin to shift. The radial canals that distribute nutrients throughout their bodies thin into hair-like filaments, branching into fractal patterns that maximize efficiency while minimizing resistance. Some species reduce muscle fibers, dramatically moving not through strength, but through the slow release of stored elastic tension, like a heartbeat stretched across minutes instead of seconds. This adaptation, backed by laboratory experiments, is a scientific marvel. A creature formed almost entirely of water, learning to manipulate the water around it with microscopic control. From this point downward, familiar shapes dissolve entirely. Jellyfish begin taking on outlines that defy intuition, long ribbons that coil like drifting smoke spheres that expand and contract with hypnotic rhythm, and creatures with bells so jagged or scalloped they resemble torn lanterns flickering in an underwater wind. These forms hint at an open question in deep-sea research. How many of these shapes are stable species, and how many are temporary responses to changing pressures? Some scientists propose that certain jellyfish may shift shape dynamically, adopting different forms at different depths. A hypothesis that challenges how we define a single animal's identity. The pressure here also influences how jellyfish behave. Movements that were once predictable become slow, ambiguous gestures, as if each creature were learning to speak a new language with its body. Bells pulse with deliberate, calm tentacles, drift with a curious stiffness, and entire animals float in postures that seem frozen, not by cold, but by the thick insistence of pressure. Imagine a world where even movement carries weight, where every expansion or contraction is negotiated with the sea itself. In this world, jellyfish become masters of controlled surrender. Why do so many deep jellyfish develop symmetry that feels slightly off, bells that are not perfectly round, tentacles that are uneven in length, or bodies that tilt subtly to one side? One hypothesis suggests that slight asymmetry helps them navigate microcurrents in a world without obvious direction. Another proposes that imperfect symmetry is simply the byproduct of developmental processes stretched thin by deep-sea conditions. Whatever the reason, these asymmetries add to their uncanny presence. Where shallow jellyfish look like delicate designs, deep ones look more like living accidents that somehow continue to drift. Farther down, our lights reveal forms that appear engineered for pressure in ways that defy expectation. Some jellyfish inflate like balloons, distributing pressure evenly across their round bodies, while others collapse into thin vertical strands that reduce surface area to almost nothing. A few rare species, when threatened, fold themselves inside out, turning their own bodies into pressure-resistant shields. These contortions are not just survival strategies. They are glimpses of evolutionary improvisations shaped over millions of years by forces that never stop pressing inward. And then we reach the boundary where pressure becomes nearly mythic. The animals here are structured not around resisting force, but around making themselves indistinguishable from the watery world around them. Some jellyfish become so delicate that touching them would cause them to shatter. Yet they remain intact, under thousands of meters of crushing weight. This paradox fuels one of the great mysteries of deep physiology. How does extreme softness become extreme resilience? Scientists suggest that their gelatinous tissues distribute pressure so evenly that no single part is stressed, allowing them to survive conditions that would destroy more rigid organisms instantly. As we watch one of these creatures drift past its body, trembling in a slow ripple of movement, its bell bending like a translucent petal under the invisible weight of the sea, we sense the fundamental truth of this section. Jellyfish become creepier the deeper we go, not because they intend fear, but because their bodies reflect a world we were never meant to inhabit. They reveal how pressure sculpts life into forms that match the deep's quiet demands. And in their eerie, fluid transformations, we glimpse a realm where softness becomes strength, and where the boundaries of biology grow thin enough to feel unreal. The deeper the descent, the stranger the shapes become, and the more each jellyfish seems to whisper that life in the deep sea is not merely adapted, it is reinvented. Light dissolves long before color disappears, fading not in a single moment, but in a slow unraveling that strips the sea of its familiar palette and jellyfish, unanchored to any rigid form. Answer this darkness with colors that should not exist in a world without sunlight. As we descend farther into the twilight zone, the last true wavelengths vanish, swallowed by water, until only blue remains And then even that gives way to blackness so complete, it feels like a physical curtain. Yet this is precisely the stage where jellyfish begin crafting light from their own bodies, weaving color into darkness, as though evolution handed them a paintbrush dipped in pure energy. Their bioluminescence starts subtly, a faint glimmer along the bell, a soft pulse inside the canals, and then unfurls into displays that turn the abyss into a theater of impossible hues. Scientists studying this region often describe the first spark of bioluminescence as a moment of cognitive dissonance. The brain expects darkness, and instead it sees life writing with photons. Jellyfish use this light in ways that are both strategic and strangely artistic. Some species emit quick flashes, short warnings, or feints that confuse predators, while others release slow, glowing waves that ripple through their bells like electric storms. These waves can linger for seconds or stretch across minutes, creating the illusion that the jellyfish is breathing light rather than water. The scientific evidence is clear. Bioluminescence here is a language older than sight and more nuanced than sound, spoken through color and rhythm. The deeper we travel, the stranger this language becomes. Some jellyfish glow in crisp blues or greens colors that travel farthest in water, but others illuminate themselves in reds, wavelengths that are normally swallowed instantly by the sea. This is a mystery that puzzled researchers for decades. Why produce a color no creature should be able to see? One hypothesis proposes that red bioluminescence evolved for stealth communication between members of the same species, detectable only by animals with specialized photoreceptors. Another suggests that red light may function as a lure, drawing in prey that mistake the glow for something harmless. These theories, though compelling, remain open questions because many deep-sea animals lack eyes capable of detecting red at all. The result is a puzzle with too many missing pieces, like a painting that glows only for itself. We drift beside a jellyfish whose tentacles pulse in alternating bands of emerald and violet, a combination that seems deliberately theatrical. As its bell contracts, rings of light race outward like ripples on a pond. When it expands, the glow dims, creating a rhythm reminiscent of slow breathing. Some researchers argue that this pattern mimics the movement of potential prey, tricking small fish or crustaceans into approaching. Others believe the glow serves no direct purpose at all, that it is simply the byproduct of chemical reactions evolved for entirely different reasons. In the deep sea, even beauty may be accidental, and yet that accident feels profoundly intentional when displayed in a world so starved of visible color. We encounter species that produce glowing clouds, sudden bursts of light that spread like underwater lightning before fading into the dark. This behavior serves as an escape mechanism, a kind of flashbang designed to startle predators long enough for the jellyfish to drift away. But the display reveals something more intriguing. These clouds often contain complex patterns, spirals, or branching shapes that resemble the fractal geometry of coral lightning or tree roots. Some scientists hypothesize these forms might be adaptations that maximize visual confusion. Others propose that they carry encoded signals we simply have not learned to read. In the abyss, light becomes language, and language becomes survival. As we glide deeper, the glow of one jellyfish catches our attention not because it is bright, but because it is wrong, an unnatural electric blue that flickers with irregular patterns. This wrongness is not poetic, it is scientific. The wavelengths do not match any known bioluminescent pigment. Researchers suspect this species uses a unique chemical pathway involving proteins that have yet to be identified. The mystery deepens. How many undiscovered pigments exist in the deep? How many shades of light does evolution keep hidden beneath pressure and darkness? There are jellyfish whose bodies remain entirely invisible until they fire off sudden bursts of light, revealing outlines that seem drawn in mid-water. A single pulse exposes the fine architecture of their canals, the delicate layering of their tissues, the lace-like network of nerves running through their bells. Another pulse, and they vanish again, as though their existence depends on the temporary illumination of their own bodies. This vanishing act raises a scientific question. Do these jellyfish actively control visibility, revealing themselves only when advantageous, or does their light simply betray them at random moments? Experiments provide hints, but no certainty. The deeper we go, the more color becomes defiance. Some jellyfish evolve pigments in their tissues, deep reds, purples, browns, that paradoxically make them nearly invisible, because these pigments absorb whatever bioluminescent light surrounds them. A red jellyfish in total darkness is essentially a shadow without edges. This adaptation has a name: counterillumination through absorption. The creature becomes a void disguised as flesh, hiding not by blending in, but by erasing itself from the visible spectrum. This adaptation is so counterintuitive that it feels like a trick crafted by the deep sea itself. Then there are species whose lights behave unpredictably, flickering, pulsing, stuttering, as if each individual carries an internal weather system. These erratic flashes may be stress responses, signals, hunting strategies, or some combination of all three. One hypothesis suggests that such irregular patterns mimic the random glints of falling detritus, allowing jellyfish to masquerade as food in a world where meals drift slowly from above. Another proposes that the patterns mimic distant bioluminescent predators, deterring would-be attackers. Even stranger are the jellyfish that emit light, not from the outside, but from deep within their bodies. Their glow radiates through layers of tissue, scattering in soft gradients that resemble nebulae suspended in water. The comparison is not poetic. Many deep-sea biologists use astronomical metaphors because the abyss behaves like space, cold, dark, and full of impossible light. These nebula-like jellies create an eerie sense of scale, as though tiny galaxies drift among us, each pulse a reminder that the deep sea holds patterns that echo cosmic rhythms. Food becomes scarce long before the darkness reaches its full depth, thinning out in strands and specks that drift downward from the productive world above. And jellyfish, ever patient, ever drifting, respond by reshaping the very idea of what it means to hunt. In the midnight zone, where the water grows colder and the blackness grows heavier, feeding becomes a slow ritual rather than a chase, a choreography of stillness and subtle motion that feels eerie precisely because it works so well in a place where almost nothing moves quickly. Jellyfish do not prowl. They wait, letting the ocean deliver its meager offerings into their silent, floating traps. Their tentacles spread like threads of living mist, nearly invisible, hanging wide into the currents for hours or even days, responding to the faintest contact with a precision that borders on supernatural. Scientists have long marveled at how jellyfish maintain their energy in this food-poor realm, and the answer lies in their exquisite frugality. Their bodies burn energy slowly, their movements unfold in soft pulses, instead of sudden bursts, and their hunting style relies on passive capture rather than active pursuit. A deep-sea jelly's tentacles may stretch meters, sometimes tens of meters into the water, forming a drifting net so delicate that even a single brush from a copepod or larval fish triggers the release of nematocysts. These microscopic stinging cells fire with astonishing speed, injecting toxins or adhesive substances that immobilize prey almost instantly. In the absence of light sight or rapid motion, the ocean becomes a world of contact, and touch becomes the primary sense through which hunting unfolds. The deeper we glide, the more this stillness grows uncanny. Jellyfish do not resemble hunters in any familiar sense. They resemble curtains of drifting glass sculptures suspended in a slow-motion ballet. When prey touches one of their nearly invisible threads, the reaction is immediate, but strangely quiet, a subtle tightening of a tentacle, a faint contraction of the bell, as if the jellyfish were politely closing its hand around a morsel. Researchers have measured these reactions, and they often involve neural pathways so simple they defy comparison to any vertebrate reflex. Yet the effect is chilling in its efficiency. A creature with no brain, no deliberate thinking, capturing prey with a precision predators of higher intelligence would envy. In this food-scarce realm, jellyfish also develop specialized strategies to maximize every meal. Some species coil their tentacles into spirals that function like fishing lines, using the slow downward drift of marine snow, organic particles, dead plankton, discarded shells, tiny fragments of excrement as steady bait. Others form colonies, gathering together in clusters that resemble drifting chandeliers, where multiple individuals share the spoils of trapped prey. This cooperative drifting raises intriguing scientific questions. Are these gatherings intentional? Or are they simply the product of currents and coincidence? Some observations suggest coordinated positioning, hinting at a primitive form of collective feeding behavior that remains only partially understood. The absence of light also reshapes the jellyfish diet itself. Here, prey items grow stranger plankton that glow when disturbed, small crustaceans with transparent armor, fish larvae with disproportionately large eyes that barely help them see. Jellyfish often rely on faint chemical cues rather than visual detection, responding to dissolved traces of ammonia, lipid residues, or even tiny electrical signatures released by struggling prey. This sensory world is invisible to us, but vivid to them, extending like an invisible web through the silent darkness. It also reveals an open mystery. How do jellyfish locate prey when cues are so faint they barely register on scientific instruments? One hypothesis suggests that jellyfish possess ultra-sensitive mechanoreceptors capable of detecting water vibrations smaller than the width of a human hair. We drift beside a species known for one of the most haunting feeding displays in the deep, the siphonophore-like predator, whose tentacles form sheet-like curtains that stretch wider than a house. These curtains billow softly, catching any creature that wanders into their delicate maze. Some deep jellyfish produce sticky mucus along their tentacles, trapping prey even before nematocysts fire. This adhesive capture remains poorly studied because the substance dissolves rapidly in collection jars, leaving only clues of its former presence. Scientists suspect this adaptation evolved because stinging alone is unreliable in a realm where gentle currents can pull prey free before toxins take effect. The midnight zone also contains predators that prey upon jellyfish themselves, small fish amphipods, and even other gelatinous creatures able to survive on their low-calorie bodies. In response, some jellyfish have evolved feeding strategies that double as defense mechanisms. They release glowing decoys, small packets of bioluminescent tissue that drift away like false bodies, luring predators into attacking the wrong target. The jellyfish remains motionless, cloaked in transparent safety, while the glowing decoy distracts the threat. This behavior is scientifically documented in several species and represents one of the most elegant examples of deception in a creature with no central brain. Another unsettling adaptation appears farther down jellyfish that feed on the corpses of creatures that have sunk from above, drifting upon the decaying remains of fish squid or even whales. While they cannot tear flesh the way scavenging crustaceans do, they extend their tentacles to extract nutrient-rich fluids. Or they let microbial blooms around the corpse drift into their waiting bells. This form of opportunistic feeding highlights an important ecological truth in the deep sea. No meal is wasted, and jellyfish may play a larger role in recycling organic material than previously understood. Yet the most mysterious feeding behavior appears when jellyfish gather around hydrothermal detritus particles rising from volcanic vents miles below us. These particles carry minerals and microbes that offer rare nourishment, and jellyfish drift in and out of these invisible plumes like slow-moving ghosts, capturing whatever the deep earth sends upward. The scientific puzzle lies in how they find these plumes in the first place. Some researchers speculate that jellyfish detect faint warmth. Others believe they follow chemical gradients similar to the way bacteria sense nutrients. Whatever the mechanism, their presence here reveals a profound adaptability that extends far beyond passive drifting. cold seeps into the water long before numbers on a thermometer confirm it, settling into the deep like a second gravity. A slow-moving force that changes not only how jellyfish survive, but how they appear, behave, and endure. As temperatures fall toward freezing, motion becomes expensive, metabolism becomes minimal, and time itself seems to stretch thin, creating a realm where jellyfish drift between movement and stillness with an elegance that feels almost supernatural. Here, in the deepening cold, their bodies take on ghost-like qualities. Bells that barely pulse, tentacles that hang like suspended threads of glass, and rhythms of life that grow so faint they resemble the quiet ticking of a distant clock. This is where the jellyfish's simplicity becomes its greatest advantage, allowing it to slip into a low-energy state that feels like hibernation, but never fully rests. Scientists studying these cold-adapted species often describe their biology as a kind of slow miracle. Their gelatinous tissues contain almost no rigid structures, which means cold cannot crack them the way it does crustaceans or fish. Their metabolic rates drop dramatically, sometimes to a tenth of what they are in warmer waters, yet they remain functional. Their nerve nets still firing their stinging cells, still primed their bells, still capable of pulsing with gentle, efficient contractions. These contractions, slowed by the cold, unfold like underwater sighs, expanding and collapsing with a languid grace that makes the jellyfish seem detached from the ordinary flow of time. One scientific hypothesis suggests that the cold allows some jellyfish to live far longer than their shallow water relatives. While surface species may survive only months, deep-sea jellyfish may persist for years, growing slowly, feeding rarely, drifting with currents that carry them like wandering spirits through the vast, icy dark. Yet the true lifespans of these deep dwellers remain an open mystery. We cannot track them continuously. We cannot tag them. And many live in places so deep that human observation is limited to fleeting glimpses caught in ROV lights. For all our progress, the cold still hides their timelines. As we drift deeper, the temperature falls even further, nearing the limits at which water can remain liquid under intense pressure. In this frozen world, the jellyfish begin to take forms that seem carved from frost itself. Pale, translucent edges soften to the point where they blur into the surrounding water. Some species develop thick gel-like bells that store energy, allowing them to survive long stretches without food. Others develop thin, sheet-like bodies that flutter like ribbons in slow currents, reducing energy consumption to almost zero. The cold shapes every curve, every motion, every glimmer of bioluminescence. One species drifts past, with a bell so faintly tinted blue, it looks like a sculpted fragment of ice, its pulse barely visible. Its tentacles trail behind in thin, wavering lines, like strands of delicate frost unraveling in liquid form. The cold here alters not only physical structure, but behavior. These jellyfish pulse less frequently, capture prey more slowly, and respond to contact with a delayed reflex that to human eyes seems almost dreamlike. And yet, in this slow-motion world, their efficiency is unmatched. Their stings fire just as fast as always. Cold does not slow the explosive chemistry of nematocysts, and any prey that drifts too close is captured before it realizes the trap. As the temperature continues to drop, bioluminescence shifts in tone. Cold increases the efficiency of certain chemical reactions, allowing some species to produce longer-lasting glows. These glows fade slowly, lingering like fading lanterns in the black. One hypothesis suggests that in frigid waters, a prolonged glow functions as both defense and communication, spreading visual cues across currents that move too slowly to carry scent or sound reliably. Another proposes that cold-induced light serves to lure prey that mistakenly follow the warmth implied by chemical activity. Yet none of these ideas are confirmed. The deep sea keeps its secrets well. We move past a jellyfish whose bell appears motionless, suspended perfectly in the cold water. Only when we draw closer do we see the faintest ripple, a pulse so slow it might be measured in minutes. It raises a profound scientific question. How slow can a pulse be and still sustain life? Researchers studying deep-sea gelatinous species have recorded contractions spaced so widely apart that each one feels like a new sunrise. But beneath that sluggish rhythm lies a paradox. The jellyfish is not weak, it is efficient. Cold is not its enemy, it is its habitat. This frozen stillness also creates eerie illusions. Our lights catch on jellyfish whose bodies are so clear that they appear to be nothing more than soft distortions of the water itself. Their presence becomes visible only when a pulse ripples across their bell, bending the light like heat above a desert road. This transparency is not only an adaptation for camouflage, it is also a consequence of the cold stripping pigments from tissue expression. Pigment requires energy to maintain, and energy is the one thing the deep cold refuses to waste. Another strange transformation appears in the behavior of nematocysts. In cold water, these microscopic stinging capsules fire with increased reliability because their internal osmotic pressures are less likely to collapse. The cold helps maintain the turgor pressure that fuels their explosive discharge. In a world where everything moves slowly, this flash of speed is almost shocking. A jellyfish may drift like a dream, but its stings strike like lightning. This duality, slow motion paired with sudden violence, gives deep-sea jellies an uncanny quality, as though the cold has separated their sensory world from their predatory one. We encounter a species known to adopt a behavior called cold hovering. Instead of pulsing continuously, it expands its bell once, and then holds that shape, suspending itself in the water for extended periods. The cold increases the density of its gelatinous body just enough to counteract downward drift. The jellyfish becomes a sculpture, unmoving, waiting for prey to come to it. This waiting may last hours. Scientists believe this hovering strategy is one of the deep sea's most energy-efficient hunting methods. And yet, it feels eerie to witness, like watching a creature deliberately pause its own life. At the deepest reaches of this cold domain, the scene grows quieter still. The water, the current, the world itself seems to sleep. And in that sleep, jellyfish glow faintly in soft hues, their lights warmer than their bodies, their motions gentle enough to resemble falling snowflakes suspended in place. The cold does not simply freeze time, here it stretches, it softens it, makes every moment linger. Tentacles lengthen long before we reach the depths where they become nearly infinite, stretching into threads so fine they disappear into the dark, transforming jellyfish from drifting ornaments into predators armed with invisible lines of contact. Down here, where no creature can rely on sight, and where currents move like slow exhalations of the planet itself, jellyfish evolve tentacles that do not simply capture prey. They define the very shape of their presence. These arms become tools of touch, of detection, of subtle manipulation, and their eerie reach gives jellyfish a reputation for quiet menace. In the shallows, tentacles merely surround. In the deep, they search, they sense, they ensnare. And the deeper we descend, the more these tentacles become not appendages, but strategies shaped by pressure, cold, and darkness. Scientists describe deep-sea jellyfish tentacles as some of the most refined biological traps on Earth. Their surfaces bristle with nematocysts, tiny capsules capable of firing venomous barbs at near supersonic speeds. And these stinging cells line up in intricate patterns, spirals, feathered fronds, beaded threads, and long silky cables. Each shape is an adaptation, and each adaptation answers the same ancient problem. How does a creature with no brain catch prey it cannot see? The answer lies in the tentacles' profound sensitivity. They detect vibrations smaller than the movement of a drifting grain of sand, respond to chemical traces invisible to any vertebrate, and tighten or loosen their orientation based on water flow. A tentacle is not simply an arm, it is a sensor array, a living extension of the ocean's own awareness. As we sink deeper, we encounter species with tentacles so long, they drift tens of meters behind them, forming floating curtains that move independently of the main bell. These curtain-like formations hang in the water like spectral nets. When a small organism brushes even a single thread, the reaction triggers a chain response throughout the tentacle, causing sections to coil like living springs. The jellyfish may respond with a slow contraction of the bell or may not move at all. Some species simply let the tentacles do the work. In many cases, scientists believe the jellyfish remains unaware, at least in any conscious sense of the capture taking place, highlighting a strange truth even without a brain. The jellyfish's body knows more than we expect. One species drifts past, whose tentacles resemble tangled hair illuminated by faint bioluminescent sparks. Each spark marks a potential point of contact, a tiny chemical reaction triggered by stimulation. To human eyes, it looks like a constellation unraveling underwater. Yet this constellation is deadly. Every glow corresponds to a firing nematocyst, each one unleashing venom potent enough to immobilize prey instantly. In some species, the venom is strong enough to down small fish. In others, it serves primarily as glue-sticking prey to the tentacle long enough for the jellyfish to reel it in. We encounter the giant tentacles of the deep, siphonophore-like jellies, though siphonophores are not true jellyfish. Many deep-sea medusae mimic their strategies. One tentacle can stretch longer than a blue whale, drifting so gently that its motion is almost imperceptible. The tentacle undulates with the slow pulse of the deep, moving in waves that feel less like movement and more like breathing. Scientists still debate how these vast structures avoid tangling, tearing, or knotting. Some propose that deep sea water is so stable and current-free that tangling rarely occurs. Others believe subtle structural differences prevent adhesion between tentacle segments. But the truth remains an open question suspended in the dark, like the tentacles themselves. Even more eerie are the tentacles that hide. Some are perfectly transparent, so clear they vanish until they brush against a passing organism. Others are pigmented in faint reds or purples that absorb surrounding bioluminescent light, rendering them invisible. This invisibility is almost unfair in a world where prey is already scarce. It gives jellyfish an enormous advantage. Yet the most haunting form of invisibility comes from tentacles that scatter light like fog. When our lights hit them, they shimmer in diffuse halos, disguising their true shape and position. These shimmering tentacles create illusions in the water reflections that seem to drift where no creature exists. As we descend farther down the water column, tentacles become not only longer, but stranger. Some split into fractal branches, tentacles branching into smaller tentacles, which branch again, creating fine nets that look like frost patterns on glass. These branching structures maximize surface area, allowing jellyfish to capture microscopic prey in enormous volumes. Others twist into corkscrew shapes, coiling in slow spirals that resemble drifting slinkies. These spirals may help funnel water and prey toward the tentacle's inner axis. We pass a jellyfish whose tentacles generate their own faint electrical fields. Though weak, these currents may detect conductive objects, tiny crustaceans, fish larvae, by the way they disturb local electrochemical gradients. This hints at a form of sensing more advanced than previously thought, and scientists continue to debate whether deep jellyfish rely partially on electroreception. If true, it would blur the line between primitive nerve nets and more sophisticated sensory systems, raising the possibility that jellyfish possess detection abilities not currently attributed to them. Tentacles too become the jellyfish's first defense. When threatened, some species release long sections that break away, continuing to pulse and glow independently. These detached tentacles act as decoys, drifting in hypnotic spirals that distract predators while the main body escapes. The phenomenon resembles autotomy, the shedding of limbs found in lizards or starfish. But in jellyfish, the cast-off parts remain functional for minutes or even hours. This behavior is not only a survival strategy, but a chilling reminder that jellyfish distribute their systems so fluidly across their bodies that even separated pieces retain lifelike activity. Yet the deepest tentacles we encounter belong to species living near the abyssal edge, where pressure and darkness gown the world in absolute quiet. These tentacles move with such slowness, they appear sculpted rather than alive. They drift outward like long strokes of ink, creating shapes that seem designed to fill as much space as possible with as little energy as necessary. Some drag across the seafloor like soft filaments gathering detritus. Others rise like vertical threads, forming a living forest of stings that hangs upward from the jellyfish above. Survival begins to look like disappearance long before we reach the depths where jellyfish become nearly invisible, shedding color definition and substance, until they resemble nothing more than distortions in the water itself. Transparency is not just a feature here, it is an entire strategy, one sculpted by darkness pressure and the constant threat of unseen predators drifting silently through the black. The deeper we move, the more jellyfish relinquish anything that might catch light. Pigments fade tissues, thin edges soften, and even internal organs flatten into faint threads. What remains is a creature that hides not by blending in, but by refusing to be seen at all. A living ghost shaped by the demands of a world where visibility is vulnerability. Scientists who study deep gelatinous organisms often describe their transparency as aggressive invisibility. It is not delicate or partial. It is almost total. The bell becomes nearly indistinguishable from the water around it, refracting light rather than reflecting it. Tentacles turn into faint shadows, visible only when they catch stray particles. Even the radial canals within the jellyfish, those thin lines that transport nutrients, compress into structures that scatter light in minimal ways, ensuring that the creature leaves no silhouette behind. Here, evolution has mastered erasure, but transparency is not as simple as appearing clear. It is a complex interplay of tissue chemistry, structural arrangement, and environmental physics. Jellyfish tissues contain proteins with refractive indices nearly identical to seawater, making them vanish against their backdrop. Some possess thin layers of structural collagen arranged in microscopic lattices that minimize light scattering. Others reduce pigmentation to almost zero, expressing only the faintest tints. Reds, violets, or browns that absorb bioluminescent glows from other animals, preventing accidental illumination. Transparency in this sense becomes a kind of optical armor. As we glide deeper, a jellyfish passes overhead, and its presence is revealed not by shape, but by movement, the faint ripple of distortion as its bell pulses in the dark. This phenomenon has a name, Schlieren-like, shifting an effect normally seen in air when heat bends light. In water, such distortion is rare and difficult to detect, which means that predators relying on vision have little chance of spotting the jellyfish. One scientific hypothesis suggests this ability evolved in tandem with the rise of deep-sea predators that hunt by silhouette, forcing gelatinous animals to erase their outlines entirely. Another hypothesis argues that transparency is simply the easiest default state for animals made mostly of water. But the perfection of this invisibility argues for selection rather than coincidence. Some jellyfish develop tissues so thin they ripple with passing currents like loose fabric, bending, warping, and folding without ever breaking their vanishing act. The behavior is eerie. When the bell expands, it appears to be a ghostly bloom of water itself. When it contracts, it shrinks into near nothingness, as if inhaled by the sea. Scientists still struggle to understand how such delicate tissues endure the crushing pressure of deep water. The leading theory proposes that the lack of internal air pockets prevents compression. Softness, once again, becomes invincibility. We encounter a jellyfish whose transparency has reached such refinement that only its bioluminescent organs betray its existence, faint specks of blue arranged in a circular pattern near the bell's rim. These pinpricks of light pulse with regular intervals, their rhythm slow and hypnotic. But even these lights are muted, shielded by tissues that scatter their glow just enough to prevent them from becoming beacons for predators. Researchers believe this controlled dimness may serve as a lure for tiny plankton that mistake the glow for drifting marine snow. It also raises an open mystery. How do jellyfish regulate such faint bioluminescence when their simple nervous systems appear incapable of precise modulation? Transparency also becomes a weapon. Some jellyfish hide their tentacles so effectively that prey never sees the trap until it touches it. Transparent threads drift silently undetected until a spark of contact triggers the firing of nematocysts. In laboratory settings, these tentacles remain invisible even under direct light, revealing themselves only when dyes or fluorescent markers bind to their surfaces. In the wild prey, animals have no such help. They swim into the trap unaware, becoming outlines of panic for only a moment before disappearing into the jellyfish's slow embrace. Farther down, the water cools and grows heavier, and transparency deepens into something stranger. Some species appear to be made not of tissue, but of thicker water liquid shapes that pulse in and out of phase with their surroundings. When our lights pass over them, they distort in unexpected ways, bending illumination into halos and shadows that do not reveal their true shapes. This effect gives them an otherworldly, almost supernatural presence, and it remains one of the deep sea's most haunting illusions. A jellyfish drifts by, whose bell contains faint metallic flecks, microscopic structures that reflect light at odd angles. At first glance, the flecks seem to contradict the strategy of invisibility, but a closer look reveals their purpose. They reflect light away from the jellyfish's core, preventing the bell from appearing as a solid shape when illuminated. These flecks scatter light, randomly mimicking the way light interacts with suspended silt or marine snow. To predators, the jellyfish becomes just another cloud of drifting particles. Transparency also shapes behavior. Deep jellyfish avoid sudden movement, not because they cannot move quickly, but because quick gestures reveal outlines. A fast pulse would bend water sharply enough to create visible distortions, so instead, they move with long, slow contractions, blurring the boundaries between bell and current. Movement becomes camouflage. Stillness becomes survival. We drift beside one of the most surreal creatures, yet a jellyfish whose bell is so clear, we see the faint glow of distant bioluminescent organisms through it, as though a piece of water itself had decided to mimic life. Its tentacles hang in nearly perfect invisibility, suspended in a pattern too intricate for coincidence. Scientists believe this species maintains transparency through constant tissue turnover, replacing damaged cells with new ones before pigment or debris can accumulate. Reproduction begins to twist into stranger forms long before we reach the depths where jellyfish alter not only how they live, but how they begin new life, reshaping the very cycles that define their existence. In the sunlit world above, jellyfish follow relatively simple patterns: polyps, budding medusae, spawning larvae, drifting into warm currents. But in the deep, where cold slows, development and scarcity shapes every decision. These rhythms shift into eerie variations that feel almost experimental. Here, reproduction becomes a negotiation with darkness. Some jellyfish clone themselves in ghost-like chains. Others brood young inside their bells like drifting wombs. Still others release offspring that glow before they are truly formed. The deeper we sink, the more reproduction becomes a quiet puzzle. How does life continue in a realm where energy is rare? Time flows slowly, and survival depends on remaining almost invisible. Scientists studying deep-sea reproduction face a constant challenge. Most of what happens here happens unseen. Many species have never been observed mating, spawning, or releasing larvae. Instead, researchers infer reproduction from the rare moments when submersibles encounter individuals carrying eggs, or from the genetic signatures that reveal multiple generations, but the steps in between remain shrouded in mystery. This ambiguity makes deep-sea jellyfish reproduction one of the ocean's most haunting scientific gaps. We know life persists, but not precisely how. One strategy is cloning. Some deep jellyfish can divide themselves into identical fragments, each one slowly regenerating into a full medusa. These divisions can occur along the bell margin or through the tentacles, where small bud-like structures detach and drift away as new individuals. In the darkness, this process appears almost supernatural, tiny versions of the parent jelly splitting off, like drifting thoughts, glowing faintly as they move on. The advantage is clear reproduction without finding a mate. The cost is equally profound. Cloning reduces genetic diversity, creating lineages that remain almost unchanged for long stretches of evolutionary time. Other jellyfish choose a more protective strategy. They brood their young inside the bell, sheltering eggs or developing larvae within soft folds of tissue. In these cases, the bell becomes a transparent cradle, glowing faintly with the flicker of growing life. Some brooders release their young only when conditions feel right, when the currents are slow, when prey density is high, or when chemical cues hint at safety. Researchers suspect that deep jellies sense the presence of small prey before releasing young, effectively timing birth to moments of opportunity. This type of brood care is rare in the jellyfish world and challenges the assumption that all medusae are passive about reproduction. We drift past a species whose reproductive glow is one of the strangest in the deep. When carrying eggs, its bell produces a soft red bioluminescence, an uncommon color at this depth which shields the eggs from blue or green light emitted by predators. Because red wavelengths vanish rapidly in water, the glow is invisible to most deep-sea organisms, acting like a silent curtain of camouflage. This phenomenon raises an intriguing hypothesis. Perhaps some jellyfish evolved reproductive light not to attract mates, but to hide their offspring. Some jellyfish release larvae equipped with tiny bioluminescent organs. These flashes appear random at first, but closer observation reveals patterns, short bursts, followed by long pauses, rhythmic glimmers that resemble tiny, Morse-like pulses. Scientists theorize that these glows may repel predators or mimic drifting marine snow. Another possibility is that the flashes help larvae stay together, preventing them from dispersing too widely in the vast dark. But these ideas remain unproven, suspended in the same uncertainty that surrounds much of deep-sea life. Reproduction in the deep also bends the rules of timing. Cold slows development so dramatically that some embryos may take weeks or months to reach stages that shallow water species complete in days. This slow development creates eerie scenes, jellyfish carrying eggs at such early or late stages of growth that they appear mismatched to the season, suggesting that deep-sea reproduction may operate on rhythms unrelated to the surface. Instead of day-night cycles or temperature shifts, these jellyfish might time reproduction according to drifting food pulses, detritus falls, or internal biological clocks tuned to ancient cycles we still cannot measure. We encounter a species with bell margins lined by rows of tiny polyps, miniature clones attached like delicate lanterns. These polyps bud off periodically, each becoming a new juvenile medusa. The parent jellyfish becomes both organism and colony, a living factory producing individuals that drift away one by one. Some scientists believe these polyps act as a hedge against unpredictability. If one offspring encounters a predator, another may drift into safety. This branching pattern mirrors colonial organisms like siphonophores, suggesting convergent evolution driven by extreme environments. Another deep species uses a strategy so unusual, it borders on unsettling. Instead of releasing larvae into the water, It allows them to crawl along the bell's inner surface, feeding on microscopic particles trapped inside the jellyfish's feeding currents. These larvae grow slowly, almost imperceptibly sheltered within the parent's body, until they reach a size capable of independent survival. Observations of this behavior are rare, but they suggest that deep-sea jellyfish may invest more in offspring than previously believed, blurring the line between simple and complex parental care. Some deep jellies appear to synchronize reproduction with deep water currents that form only at certain times of year, massive slow-moving rivers of water that sweep through the midnight and abyssal zones. Researchers propose that these jellyfish release larvae during these currents to maximize dispersal, allowing young medusae to colonize faraway ecosystems. But because these flows are unpredictable and invisible without precise instruments, the idea remains a hypothesis. One that adds to the sense of mystery that permeates the deep. Perhaps the most haunting reproductive behavior belongs to jellyfish that release gelatinous egg masses, large drifting clouds of embryos bound together in translucent sacs. These masses drift like living fog, shimmering faintly with internal light. Predators often avoid them, mistaking them for poisonous siphonophores. And as the egg mass dissolves, dozens or hundreds of miniature jellies drift free like soft, glowing embers scattered by a slow underwater wind. Monsters begin to appear long before we reach the true abyss, their bodies swelling into shapes that defy expectation, as if the deep sea were sculpting its own giants from the soft architecture of jelly. Down here, where pressure rises like a silent tide and food is scarce enough to reshape biology itself, gigantism takes hold of some jellyfish in ways that feel almost mythic. Their bells expand into vast, trembling domes. Their tentacles trail behind in lengths that seem impossible. Their movements slow into grand, echoing pulses that feel less like animal behavior and more like the shifting motion of the planet. These are not the gentle medusa of the surface. These are creatures forged by the abyss, colossal, eerie, and undeniably real. Scientists call this phenomenon deep-sea gigantism, a trend in which certain species grow far larger in the cold, nutrient-poor depths than they ever do near the surface. While some deep-sea crustaceans and worms follow this pattern, jellyfish transform it into something far more surreal, because nothing about their soft bodies should logically allow for such tremendous size. And yet they flourish. One species, the giant phantom jelly, drifts through the deep with a bell nearly a meter across and 4 trailing arms that stretch into unsettling shapes, long ribbon-like appendages that move with a slow grace that borders on sentient choreography. Its movements are mesmerizing, its silhouette uncanny. The deeper we descend, the more these giants appear, not in crowds, but as isolated drifting apparitions suspended in a world so vast, it swallows scale. A jellyfish the size of a small car emerges from the dark, not with drama, but with a quiet gliding presence. Its bell pulses slowly, creating ripples that travel through its gelatinous structure like soft, seismic waves. Scientists have observed these giants with cameras and submersibles, yet much about them remains unknown: how they feed at such size, how they reproduce, how long they live, and how often they cross the paths of predators. Some evidence suggests they may drift for decades, surviving on energy-efficient stillness. Gigantism in jellyfish may be driven by several factors. One hypothesis proposes that colder temperatures slow metabolism, allowing energy to accumulate rather than burn away, enabling slow but continuous growth across many years. Another suggests that large size makes jellyfish more effective. Drift feeders, the bigger the surface area of the tentacles, and bell the more prey they encounter in the sparsely populated depths. A third possibility, still debated, argues that pressure favors larger structures because bigger bells distribute internal tension more evenly. None of these ideas fully explain the phenomenon. The truth likely lies in some combination or in factors we have not yet discovered. We encounter a jellyfish whose tentacles stretch beyond our lights. They drift like loose cables disappearing into the dark below and above. Some scientists believe these tentacles may reach lengths of 30 meters or more. They form living labyrinths drifting through the water column like threads of deep-sea architecture. Prey wandering into these vast curtains becomes entangled sometimes dozens of meters away from the central body. Because energy is precious in the deep, having a capture radius that broad becomes a defining advantage. Even more impressive are the wide bell species jellies, whose bells spread into thick, undulating domes. These shapes magnify their ability to navigate slow currents, acting like living sails that harness ocean flow rather than resisting it. One jellyfish observed near the abyssal edge had a bell so wide it resembled a floating, transparent shield. Its pulse pattern was slow and ambiguous, so steady it appeared more like the slow inflation and deflation of a drifting bubble. Beneath its bell hung countless filaments, creating a hazy field of stinging threads that glowed faintly with pale green bioluminescence. The giants raise a scientific mystery. How do soft-bodied animals survive at such enormous sizes in a realm where many predators grow equally massive? Deep sea fish, with wide jaws and extendable stomachs, could in theory consume giant jellies, but sightings of such predation are extremely rare. Some researchers propose that jellyfish gigantism evolved precisely because predators tend to prefer smaller, denser prey that offer more calories per attack. A giant jellyfish made mostly of water may simply not be worth the energy cost of eating. Yet the sheer size of these jellies challenges this explanation. Some are so enormous that any predator would need to attack them in multiple bites over long periods, an inefficient strategy in a world where every movement matters. We drift beside a creature so large, its bell casts a shadow across the sea floor. A faint trembling dimness, visible only because our lights reveal the distortion. Its tentacles hang like drooping pillars brushing the sediment gently. This jellyfish hunts upward rather than outward, letting currents deliver prey down into its tentacle forest. Cold water slows decay, allowing captured prey to remain intact for extended periods, giving the jellyfish time to process its meals with low energy cost. This method hints at a slow, deliberate feeding pattern that may sustain these giants for weeks after a single large capture. Some deep jellies exhibit a phenomenon researchers call parasocial drifting loose grouping behavior, where massive individuals hover within proximity without interacting. This creates the illusion of a drifting city of giants moving together through the black as though guided by a collective instinct. Whether this behavior serves a purpose remains unclear. It may increase the chances of successful reproduction, or it may be coincidence created by currents. But the sight of multiple giant jellies drifting together evokes a sense of ancient ceremony, vast, slow lives, moving in quiet parallel. Then there are the shapeshifters jellies, whose giant bodies appear to melt and re-solidify as they pulse. Their bells ripple in waves that distort their outlines, making them appear to expand, contract, and even dissolve into the water around them. This effect can be unsettling, especially through the lens of an ROV camera. Researchers describe encounters where jellies seem to vanish mid-pulse, leaving only faint silhouettes behind. These moments raise an open question. Are these giants using transparency to an extreme degree, or do their tissues undergo temporary disorganization during movement? The answer remains elusive. Gigantic deep-sea jellyfish also challenge our understanding of age. Some may live for decades, growing slowly and steadily accumulating mass as they drift through the silent currents. Others may grow rapidly under certain conditions, responding to rare food pulses or changes in deep water chemistry. Because we cannot tag or track them, their life histories remain one of the deep sea's most profound mysteries. Their size hints at long lives, but without direct observation, the truth continues to drift just beyond our reach. Ecosystems begin to take shape long before we can see them forming, not around sunlight or plants or familiar food webs, but around drifting bodies, falling shadows, chemical traces, and the quiet ghost-like presence of jellyfish. In the deep sea where darkness reigns, where pressure rules where the ground lies. Miles below, most creatures depend on what drifts from above. But jellyfish create something different. They do not merely consume, they support entire networks of life in ways that feel invisible until we look closely. Their bodies become floating habitats. Their waste becomes food. Their deaths become oases. And the deeper we travel, the more surreal these ecosystems become. Built not on abundance, but on the delicate choreography of scarcity. Scientists studying these deep realms often describe jellyfish as architects of the drifting world. Their tentacles, bells, mucus trails, and decomposing bodies form microhabitats for dozens of species, some tiny, some surprisingly large. Small crustaceans hide among their tentacles to evade predators. Larval fish hover beneath their bells, sheltered from the omnipresent dark. Even worms and amphipods burrow into dead jellyfish bodies, extracting energy from their gelatinous remains with astonishing efficiency. Though jellyfish are mostly water, what little organic material they hold becomes precious resource in a realm where every calorie matters. As we sink deeper, the ecosystems become stranger. Some jellyfish drift through the water with entire communities living around them, tiny isopods picking at parasites, copepods clinging to the bell, even other gelatinous organisms following closely to snatch leftovers. This behavior raises a question scientists still debate. Are these relationships commensal, opportunistic, or symbiotic? Some evidence suggests mutual benefit. Jellyfish provide shelter. Their hitchhikers may remove irritants or parasites. But because observation in the deep is limited, these interactions remain more mystery than fact. We encounter a jellyfish whose bell glows faintly in rhythmic pulses. Surrounding it, a cloud of microscopic organisms drifts like dust around a lantern. These organisms, attracted either by chemical cues or faint light, feed on bacteria and small particles stirred up by the jellyfish's movement. In doing so, they create a miniature feeding zone that nourishes other creatures farther up the chain. This phenomenon, called particle enhancement, reveals how jellyfish serve as catalysts in the deep, using their mere presence to stimulate tiny cycles of activity. Even their discarded mucus becomes precious. Some jellyfish release long streams of sticky, transparent material used to trap prey. But in the deep, these strands collect bacteria, protozoans, and drifting detritus until they form nutrient-rich ribbons. Small grazers find these ribbons irresistible, nibbling along their lengths like caterpillars on leaves. This behavior, rarely seen near the surface, creates a quiet cascade of energy transfer. One creature's byproduct becomes another's resource, an elegant economy sculpted by the deep sea itself. The deeper we drift, the more ecosystems take shape around jellyfalls, dead jellyfish sinking to the bottom. Unlike whale falls, which create massive temporary cities on the seafloor, jellyfalls are smaller, more transient, but far more frequent. They land softly like collapsed parachutes and are consumed within hours or days by waiting scavengers. Worms tunnel into their remains, fish nibble at their edges, and microbial blooms ignite across their surfaces. Some scientists believe jellyfalls are one of the deep ocean's most important food sources, tiny, frequent pulses that sustain organisms between rarer, larger feasts. Even more eerie are ecosystems built on chemical trails. Jellyfish excrete ammonia that disperses slowly in the cold, dense water, forming chemical gradients detectable by certain deep-sea animals. These gradients attract scavengers, predators, and even other jellyfish, creating momentary hotspots of activity around a drifting medusa. Though invisible to us, these chemical trails are as significant to the deep as footprints are on land, records of movement, hints of opportunity paths that other creatures follow through the void. We glide past a species known for forming drifting aggregations, and the ecosystem around it expands. Hundreds of small organisms gather in the faint halo of bioluminescence surrounding the cluster. Some graze on free-floating particles stirred up by the jellyfish's slow pulses. Others feed directly on the jellyfish's sloughed-off tissue. The cluster functions like a drifting garden, fertilized by decay and illuminated by soft internal light. Scientists believe these aggregations may reshape deep-sea nutrient flows on scales far larger than previously recognized. Jellyfish also influence the deep through vertical migration, long daily journeys that many species undertake even from great depths. When they rise at night to feed and sink during the day to rest, they transport nutrients across huge vertical distances. This phenomenon, called biological pumping, helps distribute organic matter through the water column. In the deep, where currents are weak and food scarce, jellyfish act as living elevators of energy, shuttling resources between layers like quiet couriers of life. A profound scientific mystery lies in the way jellyfish contribute to the carbon cycle. When they die and sink rapidly, which they often do, they transport carbon to the deep sea faster than many other organisms. This process, dubbed the jelly pump, may play a major role in long-term carbon storage, effectively removing carbon from surface waters for centuries or more. But because jellyfish are fragile, their contribution has been historically underestimated. Fragments often dissolve before researchers can measure them. The deep sea hides the true scale of their influence. We encounter a jellyfish whose movements disturb a cloud of amphipods. These scavengers hover near its bell, waiting for opportunities to feed on smaller organisms trapped in its tentacles. When the jellyfish pulses, the amphipods scatter and then regroup, forming a shifting halo around the medusa. This dance hints at a behavioral ecosystem, tiny animals responding to the jellyfish's motions as if it were a drifting weather system. Some researchers believe deep-sea jellies shape microcurrents in ways that benefit surrounding communities, though this remains speculative. Even predators form ecosystems around jellyfish. Certain deep-sea fish have evolved ways to bite through jelly tissue without triggering tentacle stings. Others hover below jellies, waiting for scraps. And some, like juvenile stages of various species, shelter beneath the bells for protection. This behavior mirrors shallow water ecosystems, but grows stranger in the deep, where the lack of light makes shadow hunting irrelevant, and the jellyfish's transparency makes hiding both easier and more surreal. Intelligence begins to blur long before we reach the depths where jellyfish behave in ways that challenge our definitions of thought, responding to the world. Not with minds as we understand them, but with patterns so precise they imitate intention. Down here in the slow-moving black, where sensory cues vanish and survival depends on timing more than speed, jellyfish reveal behavioral complexity so unexpected that scientists hesitate to call it instinct alone. Their nerve nets, simple lattices of neurons spread across their bodies, coordinate movements, regulate bioluminescence, trigger escape responses, and even adjust hunting strategies in real time. And as we drift deeper, these responses begin to resemble decisions made without a brain. Researchers studying deep-sea medusae describe their behavior with a kind of quiet awe. A jellyfish, they note, will adjust the rhythm of its bell pulses depending on current strength, prey density, or even the approach of a predator. It will recoil from chemical cues, pause its movement when turbulence threatens to expose it, reposition its tentacles depending on the quality of drifting food, and alter its vertical migration in response to temperature gradients. None of these actions require a central brain, yet all of them require information processing. And this is the paradox that becomes unavoidable in the deep. How does a creature without a center exhibit behavior that feels coordinated? One hypothesis suggests that a jellyfish's nerve net acts as a distributed decision-making system, multiple nodes, responding simultaneously, producing emergent behavior. This emergent intelligence, though simple at the neuronal level, can appear sophisticated at the behavioral scale. Another hypothesis proposes that deep-sea jellyfish rely on chemical memory temporary shifts in ion channels that influence behavior minutes or hours later. The idea remains controversial, but observations of jellyfish adjusting hunting strategies after failed captures hint at something like short-term learning. Whatever the mechanism, the result evokes an unsettling truth: complexity does not always require a brain. We drift past a jellyfish that pulses in a pattern too deliberate to dismiss. Each contraction is followed by a long, calculated pause, as if the creature were sampling its surroundings. Scientists studying similar patterns have noted that jellyfish often listen to the water, pausing to sense vibrations, chemical signals, or pressure shifts. This behavior feels like deliberation, though it emerges from simple neural circuits tuned to environmental change. The deep sea turns this tuning into a powerful tool. With so few cues available, even the slightest disturbance can become information. And the jellyfish uses it. Some species exhibit coordinated movement between tentacles, adjusting their spacing, tightening their formations, or repositioning them for maximum efficiency in prey capture. This spatial awareness implies a form of body-wide communication. Without a central brain, each tentacle may act like an independent sensor, feeding information into a shared network. The jellyfish becomes not a single creature, but a constellation of sensing parts, each one contributing to the whole. This distributed intelligence mirrors systems seen in slime molds, ant colonies, and fungal networks, creating a parallel between deep sea jellies and some of the strangest minds on Earth. We encounter a jellyfish whose bioluminescent pulses communicate something more intricate than simple defense. The pulses begin slow, then accelerate, then settle into a repeating rhythm that feels almost patterned. At first glance, it resembles a lure meant to attract prey. But some scientists believe these pulsed sequences might serve deeper functions, signaling stress, coordinating with nearby jellies, or distracting predators. Because we lack the ability to decode these flashes, their true purpose remains an open question. Yet the consistency and structure of the pulses hint at a form of communication, even if primitive. Another species demonstrates avoidance behavior that seems predictive rather than reactive. When approached by an ROV, it does not simply shrink or pulse away. It alters its trajectory in anticipation, turning its bell slightly to catch a current that will carry it out of reach. This subtle repositioning suggests awareness of water flow and movement dynamics, an ability to plan escape not by thought, but by deeply embedded sensory algorithms. Observational studies support this pattern. Jellyfish avoid turbulence, predators, and obstacles with movements that appear calm and intentional. Whether this is intelligence or reflex depends on how we define those words. As we drift deeper, a medusa pulses toward us, its movements oddly rhythmic. Each tentacle waves in gentle coordination, curling inward slightly before extending again. This pattern has been documented in hunting behavior, suggesting that the jellyfish may be sweeping its tentacles through water volumes where chemical cues suggest prey is present. This is not random. It is targeted. The jellyfish is reading the invisible language of drifting molecules and responding with quiet strategy. It does not need a brain to calculate. Its entire body calculates. A profound mystery arises from experiments, showing that jellyfish can modify their behavior after repeated stimulation. If stung or touched in the same location multiple times, they alter their movement to avoid that region. This suggests something like habituation, a form of learning. Even more striking, some species exhibit sleep-like states, drifting in prolonged stillness before resuming more active pulses. Sleep, in most animals, is associated with memory consolidation. But for jellyfish, scientists remain uncertain. Do deep-sea jellies rest? Do they recalibrate? Or does the darkness simply impose rhythms that resemble sleep? We observe a species whose bell contracts in subtle spirals, not concentric rings. This spiral pulse is rare among shallow species, but more common in deep-water medusae. Some researchers believe this pattern improves maneuverability in dense cold water. Others think it increases sensory perception by altering the way tentacles move relative to the bell. Whatever the purpose, the result looks intentional, a quiet complexity expressed through fluid geometry. Toward the abyss, jellyfish begin to exhibit behaviors even harder to classify. Some species align themselves with microcurrents, drifting with their tentacles angled in ways that maximize encounters with prey. Others pulse irregularly, mimicking the natural turbulence of falling debris to avoid detection by predators. Certain jellies even change their vertical position in response to faint shifts in dissolved oxygen, suggesting internal thresholds and chemical sensing far more refined than expected. The deeper we observe, the more jellyfish behavior resembles a form of alien intelligence, not conscious, not emotional, but deeply adaptive. A system built on sensation, not thought. Reaction, not reflection. And yet the outcome often mirrors intention so closely that it becomes difficult to draw the line between instinct and strategy. The mystery begins to steep, long before we reach the deepest trenches, where jellyfish dissolve into shapes so surreal. They blur the boundaries between animal apparition and element. Down here below, the last flicker of bioluminescent hunters below, the drifting giants below, even the slow rivers of cold oxygen. Pour water, the world enters a silence so complete, it alters the very idea of presence. Pressure builds into a force that does not crush, but erases. Darkness thickens until it becomes substance. And in this realm, jellyfish evolve into forms that seem less like creatures and more like memories of creatures flickering in and out of existence with each slow pulse. Scientists who send submersibles into these deep places often describe encounters that feel like hallucinations, jellyfish that appear only when illuminated from a certain angle, medusae that scatter into threads like unraveling fabric, bells that flatten into sheets before curling back into domes, tentacles that behave like drifting smoke rather than limbs. These forms are not mistakes of perception, and they are real adaptations crafted by conditions so extreme that matter itself bends into new rules. The deepest jellyfish live in a world where softness reigns, where solidity is a liability, where the line between organism and environment grows thin. We drift through a depth where life becomes rarefied, each creature spaced by hundreds of meters, each movement so slow it feels geologic. And then we see it, a jellyfish, whose bell is not a dome, but a shifting polygon, its edges folding and unfolding, like liquid origami. Its body refracts light into strange prismatic patterns, scattering illumination into angular shadows. Researchers theorize that such shapes may reduce drag in near-still water or scatter predator-emitted bioluminescence. But the effect is uncanny. The jellyfish seems to flicker between shapes like a thought struggling to take form. Deeper still, we encounter medusae, whose tentacles do not trail, but rise thin filaments floating upward like strands of reversed rain. These upward tentacles reflect a world turned upside down. In the deepest trenches, upward currents are more reliable than downward drift. Some jellyfish anchor themselves to nothing but buoyant posture, using rising water to deliver particles directly into their stinging nets. The sight of tentacles stretching toward the unseen ceiling of the abyss creates an eerie inversion. A reminder that in the deep, survival rewrites orientation itself. One species hovers before us, its entire body wrapped in a faint, milky haze, an aura created by microscopic cilia that beat in coordinated waves. These cilia manipulate boundary layer flow, reducing turbulence around the jellyfish so dramatically that it slips through water almost without disturbance. The result is supernatural. It moves without moving, drifting forward with no visible pulse. Scientists believe such adaptations allow the jellyfish to approach prey without warning. But the behavior feels ghost-like, as though the creature were gliding through a dream. Another jellyfish emits bursts of luminescence, not from its bell, but from deep within its core, concentrated flashes that pulse outward in geometric shapes. The patterns resemble rippling rings, triangles, even spirals, precise forms rarely seen in biological light. These signals remain one of the deep's most persistent mysteries. Some hypothesize that the patterns confuse predators. Others believe they attract prey, sensitive to pressure changes or electromagnetic cues. A more speculative idea suggests that the flashes may serve as communication between individuals widely spaced in the darkness. Whatever the truth, the result looks like coded messages drifting through the abyss. As pressure approaches its peak, jellyfish become astonishingly delicate. Some possess bells so thin they flutter like film when touched by weak currents. Others reduce their bodies to strands, ribbons, or fog-like veils. In these cases, jellyfish becomes almost a misnomer. The organisms are more accurately described as gelatinous architectures, subtle enough to avoid detection, flexible enough to withstand pressure, simple enough to endure conditions that would destroy denser life. In some species, the distinction between bell and tentacle disappears entirely, replaced by amorphous sheets that resemble drifting tissues of illuminated vapor. Then we see one of the rarest shapes of all, a medusa, whose body forms a perfect ring with no central mass, an open circle drifting like a glowing halo. Only fine hair-like tentacles radiate inward and outward. Scientists debate whether this species evolved through loss, shedding inner structures to save energy, or through innovation, creating a ring-shaped organism optimized for pressure neutrality. But the effect is haunting. It looks less like an animal and more like a portal suspended in black water, glowing faintly as though offering passage into deeper darkness. We descend further still, past the threshold where even ROV lights seem to dim under the density of the water. Here, jellyfish take on forms that feel more conceptual than biological. One species appears as a faint lattice of glowing dots, bioluminescent nodes connected by nearly invisible threads. When it pulses, the dots shift, reorganizing like stars, collapsing into new constellations. Another resembles a drifting spiral, a helix of transparent tissue that spins slowly as it moves using rotation instead of pulsing to navigate the trenches. Yet another species splits its bell into 3 or 4 separate lobes that move independently like petals of a drifting flower learning different rhythms. The deepest medusa often possess something else: stillness. Perfect, absolute stillness. They hover without motion, tentacles, extended bells, open bodies suspended as though held by nothing. Only chemical gradients or pressure waves reveal their presence. In this state, a jellyfish becomes less an animal and more a listening organ, a sentinel tuned to whispers of prey or danger. The stillness is eerie not because it feels unnatural, but because it feels intentional, an adaptation to a realm where movement is costly and silence is safety. And then, at the deepest point, our descent allows we witness something that defies language, a jellyfish whose entire form glows softly from within, not in flashes or waves, but in a steady, golden radiance. Its bell appears to melt into the darkness at its edges, its light fading gradually into nothing. Scientists have never formally documented this species. The glow may be bioluminescence, or chemical reaction, or optical effect. But in that moment, it resembles a drifting lantern, a quiet beacon in a world that should not permit such warmth. It pulses once slow, deliberate, gentle, and the glow dims. The tentacles fold like ribbons, settling in calm water. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the lantern-like medusa disappears, its light extinguished, leaving behind a silence so complete, it seems carved from the abyss itself. And this is the truth the deep reveals. The farther we descend, and the more jellyfish step beyond the boundaries of form, sense, and expectation. They become abstractions of survival, living echoes shaped by pressure, darkness, and time. They are not monsters, but reminders, beautiful and unsettling, of how life continues to reinvent itself in places where the world should have ended. And in their drifting, dissolving shapes, we finally understand. And the deepest reason jellyfish grow creepier the further we go. Because in the abyss, they become not only creatures of the sea, but reflections of the sea's most ancient dream life at the edge of the impossible.